Welcome to the Globetrottin ADs. This podcast is for you, athletic directors, activity coordinators, coaches, and program associates based in international schools around the world. The Globetrottin ADs is proudly hosted by Nick DeForest from the American International School Vienna and Matt Fleming from the American International School of Budapest. Here they are now, Nick and Matt and the Globetrottin ADs.
Welcome to this special episode of the Globetrottin ADs. Special because it is a joint production. We've teamed up with our friend Dave Burns here, and this episode will be played obviously on Globetrottin ADs, but also Dave's International Baseball Community Podcast. You'll hear about Dave's role as an AD in a second, and the other side of Dave's life is focused around baseball. He's a Canadian who's come to Austria and has stayed, just like myself. And he started a community for baseball players around the world to expand their careers overseas. And it's called Baseball Jobs Overseas. And through that, he has a blog, a video series, and of course, a podcast that just hit 80 episodes and has been going on for over 5 years now. So the first part will be Dave and Matt and I talking about AD stuff and AIS Salzburg and our DVAC conference. And then we'll switch gears, and the second part will be the IBC podcast, where Dave and I will talk about my journey overseas, our first impressions, and talk about a time when a photo of us made a lot of the national newspapers here in Austria. So if you want to stick around for the whole episode, that'd be great. But if you want to tune out halfway through, no hard feelings. So I'll kick it over to Matt, and we'll get started.
All right. So welcome, Dave. Dave Burns, our colleague from the American International School of Salzburg. One of my favorite places, Dave. I love going to Salzburg. It's a beautiful area. And we're glad to have you here today to share some info about your school and your baseball program. So maybe you want to give us a little short profile of your job there at AIS in Salzburg and a little bit about the school.
Yeah, thanks for having me, first of all. There isn't a lot to tell being such a small school. My role isn't quite as comprehensive as your role, Matt, at a much larger school in Budapest. I took over as athletic director in, I think it was 2010. Our school, like the size of our school, we're only at about, we fluctuate between 60 to 100 students in any given year, grade 7 through 12. So as you can imagine, our sports program isn't that elaborate, but we do manage to field girls volleyball every year in the fall with a boys soccer team. And then in the winter, we have a boys and girls basketball team. And that's the extent of it, really, in terms of, when you offer something like a swim meet or whatever, if we have a kid that's a strong swimmer or interested, then we could always send them. Same with, for example, the cross country. If we have a runner, then we can send a kid. So we could help them out with that way with DVAC, which I'm sure we'll get more into. But other than that, it's a pretty small program, and my role, I do it from home. That's how small it is. So I don't even have an office or anything. I definitely don't have an office overlooking a pool. So I'm at home, and it's for the majority of it. It's just we're kind of a travel team for the most part. Even though we do have hosting capability, we don't have any on-site facilities, but we do have access to an Olympic training facility that the university here uses as well. So it's a beautiful facility. But a lot of the schools that we compete with, especially in DVAC, are in Budapest, Vienna, and it seems that it's just easier when we go to them and we travel, because a lot of teams just don't travel this far. So that's about the extent of it. Other than that, I also do a new role that I've taken on is kind of the marketing manager / social media manager at the school. That's something that was definitely lacking at the school. And now with just more and more international schools popping up, they needed somebody to focus on that full time. So now that's basically my role. And I coach the girls volleyball team and basketball team.
Wow, cool. Well, thanks, Dave. And that new role is actually, you'll definitely be able to answer this one question I have about the school is, it is small, as you said, 70 to 100 every year, but you've been around since the 70s. So was the school ever a big school? I know you have borders. Is it, stay constant?
Our hosting capacity, I think, for borders is around 100, and that's pushing it. Given the building, the size of the building, and the age of the building, but there's a lot of recent upgrades and everything. But I would say we're probably maxing out at around 80 boarders, something like that. But there was a time before my time where there was like a bed and breakfast down the road. We used that building as well. So I think we got up to 100 or 120 boarders at that time. But that was, I think, in the 80s. So, yeah, since I've been at school, since 2004, I've been at the school, which I don't think I said. Since I've been at the school, it's really been fluctuating between 60 and 100.
Okay. And you mentioned you have, a girls team and a boys team in the fall and the winter seasons. So, but with 100 kids from middle and high, you could have a lot more. Is it the participation? Like, what kind of students do you have? Is it hard to get those kids out?
Actually, it's not that difficult because they're in a boarding school and the day student population is so small that they're actually excited to just go do something and get out of the school. And so I get a lot of kids never played basketball or volleyball in their life or football, soccer. We have a lot of British colleagues at school. So it's really not that difficult to convince them to, hey, just come give it a try. And I'm recruiting heavily, like from day one. I'm every kid that walks through the door, I get on them. And I've managed to take a few naysayers and turn them into people that love, whether it's volleyball or basketball or whatever.
With the kids who are boarders, where do a lot of them come from, or are they coming from everywhere? What's the makeup of the nationality population?
Yeah, it's pretty international right now. There was a period about 5 years ago where we were getting like 40% Russian population, but now that's down to around 15%, 10 to 15% Russian. We get probably about the same percent Bulgarian. We have Austrians, probably 10, 15% as well. Austrian Germans, I should say. Eastern Europeans, other Eastern European countries like Croatia, Serbia. We'll have a few Asian kids as well. And we always have a handful of Americans as well, or Canadians. A couple Australians this year. Mexico is another country we tend to pull from. But right now we're aggressively looking to some of these countries that typically we don't draw students from. We're more proactive right now with my new role at trying to recruit students from other countries that typically you don't see at our school.
Located to the Alps so closely there in Salzburg, do you guys have a ski program as well, or a winter sport program you guys offer?
Yes, I am pushing to try to make it a little more. We don't want to be labeled as a ski school necessarily, or go too far in that direction. But for up to me, I'd kind of want it to go that way a little more because I've been doing it most of my life and snowboarding. And so we are going more in that direction. Like we have a ski excursion once a year, and then we have 5 ski trips during the school year. That's all part of the tuition.
Okay.
So it's not extra. I'm pushing for to tack on a couple more ski trips. And what we've done with our winter excursion, it's alternated, where 1 year it's ski excursion, the next year it's a trip to Vienna or somewhere. But I'm pushing for a winter excursion, a ski excursion every winter.
Yeah, so many awesome places to go to just within an hour's drive of there. So definitely good to take advantage of it.
Definitely. And the kids love it. And, I think that in the near future, you're going to see us heading more in that direction.
Cool. Well, I like what you said about, getting out there, getting the kids involved, regardless if they played a sport or not. It's important that they're a part of that school community, right? And that's great with such a small and close community like you have, that you really have those things for them, right?
Yeah, it's great. And a lot of the kids, like, that also, like, kind of, with that being said, like, a lot of these kids that never had a sports background to date, or maybe aren't the most athletic kid, or they're a little nervous to push their boundaries. There's really, like, when I'm recruiting them, there's nowhere to hide in that small school. So I tend to, track them all down and I say, hey, just come try it once. If you don't like it, I won't push you, and next thing you know, they're showing up to a second practice, then a third one. And, I got some pretty cool stories of some kids where, like, I really had to talk them into it. And then next thing you know, they're decked out in all the latest basketball gear, whatever. So, so I love stories like that. Or I love just seeing kids that, like, really, don't have the size or whatever, but they just get in there and next thing you know, they're just super passionate about it. And it's pretty cool to see that, where maybe in a bigger school, there's not as much opportunity, or maybe a little more intimidating to go out to practice, I'm guessing or assuming. So it might be a little easier on our team. We don't cut anybody. Like, there's no such thing as cutting or holding tryouts.
It's begging, right? It's begging, not cutting.
Basically begging.
All comers. That's cool, though. It gets such a nice atmosphere to the school and promotes the spirit, and kids get involved. It's great.
You mentioned we mentioned DVAC, and we want to talk about that. But you said you don't host too often, but you do have a big basketball tournament every year. And I looked it up. It's actually been around since 1990, which surprised me. Tell us about that tournament and what it brings to your community.
Yeah, I mean, it's that one time a year where we have this big sporting event. Well, actually, we have a second one now, but where the whole school kind of rallies around it. We have a spirit week leading up to it. Okay. So we really get, that's that one opportunity a year to kind of, for a lot of these kids, which are mostly European, to get that kind of North American team sport, school rally behind them atmosphere. And they love it. And so it really is a special time of the year for us. And with that being said, like, prior to that, often we used to go to the tournament, the invitational basketball tournament at ICSB. Lately it's conflicted with our winter excursion, but the kids always love that because they put on an unreal show there. Like, they usually have a band and they have cheerleaders and you name it. And the kids just, like, at first they think, well, this is a little weird, but they remember some show they've seen on TV where they see that, and just to kind of live that and be part of it, and then have fans cheering for you. You could see, like, it just makes them fall in love with the sport too as well. And so it is a special time of the year for us, and we love it. And yeah, it was supposed to be our 30th annual Jamboree tournament this spring. We had to cancel it, unfortunately, so we'll get after it again next year.
Cool. And teams come from all over, or where have you had schools come from?
Yeah, I mean, in the 15-16 years I've been here, we have our regular schools that come every year, but it has been quite international. We get Swiss teams, we get German teams, we get teams from Slovakia, obviously some Austrian international schools as well. So they really come from everywhere, and we try to invite basically based on the size or the level of our teams in any given year. Yeah. So there's some years we'll invite varsity teams maybe if it's a bigger school that we're inviting. But for the most part, it's kind of like a JV caliber tournament. Yeah.
Well, people are listening all around the world, and a friend of ours, Freddie, in Colombia, before all this happened, we were planning a trip for his basketball team, and we're thinking about a Prague, Budapest, Vienna excursion. So you never know, Dave. People listening, they might want to come to Salzburg and ski and play some basketball at the same time.
Oh yeah, we're always open to new teams, and we can sometimes I bite off a little more than I can chew, and I make it a 16-team tournament, 8 on the boys and 8 on the girls side, running 3 courts at a time. Oh, I did that twice when I was younger and a little more in the tank. But these days I'm like, oh, 6 is good. But yeah, if they contact me early, I'll try and squeeze them in. And for sure, if there's anytime we could host a new team, it's always cool for the kids.
Cool. Yeah. With the way everything being canceled, a lot of conferences around the world are obviously we're shut down now and are shutting down already for the fall. But the 3 of us are in DVAC, right? At Danube Valley Athletic Conference, and we're not canceled yet for the fall, right? We're so close to each other, right? We holding out hope, I think. Matt?
Yeah, we're like we said before, we're so lucky that we have this proximity of such close these schools in such close proximity. We're lucky geographically speaking because we can get to each other quickly and easily and have these one-day events. Dave, it's a little more of a challenge because usually if you come to Budapest, I know you guys have had to stay in hostels and stuff, but it always works out. And you guys definitely add to the atmosphere as well. And for a smaller school, definitely hold your own and are usually quite competitive. So that's what we also like about the DVAC is the mix we have. We have the larger schools like Nick and I, and then the smaller schools. And it's the competition always kind of levels out at some point, which is always great to see too.
I love the thing I love about about DVAC is we have the flexibility some years to go for it. Like if I have a particularly strong team that year, then hey, we could enter in the varsity side of volleyball or basketball or whatever. And so for a number of years, I've done that. I've really pushed the kids to be the best they can, and we've competed well. And now we're kind of in this rebuilding phase, so it's nice to just kind of slow it down a bit and go back down to junior varsity. Actually, I think that's the first time since we introduced that split that I haven't gone in the varsity with my teams, and because I know when's too much, and I think right now it's a little too much because our numbers are down a bit right now. So it was definitely more difficult to draw out some experienced kids is the main thing. We still have a lot of interest. I mean, we only had I think we had 30 girls in the school this year, and I had 17 show up to my basketball. I think we ended up settling in around 14 kids out of 30 were on the basketball team. So
that's when you look at just percentage, that's a heck of a participation rate there. 50. That's pretty good. Great. So, yeah. I mean, Dave, you were a chair of DVAC for quite a while, which I've taken over from you as you got busier into other things, as we'll talk about. But what is DVAC, or what did it bring to your school, like being a part of a conference for such a small school that didn't have one before? Do people talk about DVAC at your school? Is it?
Yeah, people talk about it. A lot of the kids at the school, they're not really used to that, the team sport concept and everything, and the whole rallying behind your teams and everything. So they're getting more used to that, but they're all aware of what DVAC is, and just the aspect that we're traveling and playing sports is something that they all think is really cool. I know a lot of the kids that sign up, they're signing up because they want to travel, and then they end up liking the sport. But yeah, DVAC, what it brings to our school is tremendous because that's something we can present to the kids or a prospective student that might come to our school too. And also, it just makes our program that much better. Before, they were just one-off games here or there, and now it's like a whole, we can go for, we want to be champions, right? So that's what we talk about. And that's what we prepare for is, with that goal at the end of the year is to rank in the top 3 and try to win the trophy. And, that's always an exciting thing too.
Cool. Well, I'm great. I'm glad, when we started DVAC, that many years ago, that it gives the small schools an opportunity to be a part of something, because Matt and our schools are in, ISST, SKIS, CISA, you know, we have other things, but, you know, DVAC's really important to schools like yours, but also still for us, you know?
Yeah. It really worked out well. And it's now that we're up to how many members now? Are we at still at 12 or are we at 15 now?
Yeah, I think we're still at 12. Still
Plus.
12 plus. Yeah.
I think we're 12 and a half. Yeah. Something like so
schools to be named later.
Yeah. It provides that nice variety too, right? Like before it was like, okay, we're going up to play the Bavarian International School or we're going over to play St. Gilgen. And, you know, maybe we'd go up to Munich and play the Munich International School when we were a little stronger some years. And that was it, you know. But now it's, you know, we have 12 different teams, and then we have teams outside of DVAC we play against too. And so it's great. And we're just playing all these different teams, and the kids enjoy it. And a lot of the kids connect too at these tournaments, at the festivals. You know, next thing you know, they have more international friends through the sports program that we offer.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for you know, sharing about your school, and obviously you're passionate about it. It's great that you've been there so long. I didn't realize that. We're going to keep talking about baseball. Matt, do you have any other questions for Dave before we kick you out of here?
No, I think that's about it for me.
Thanks, guys, for having me. And your turn, Nick, to be on the hot seat.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. Good to see you again, buddy.
See you, Matt.
Take care. See you, Nick.
See you, Matt. Well, first, let's just take a quick ad break, and then we'll come back with the IBC portion of this episode. If your school is in the market for bespoke sportswear, look no further than Kukri Sports. Kukri has evolved over the last 20 years from a bespoke sportswear manufacturer into a true sportswear partner, firmly believing in the value of sport at all levels. Start your journey today. Email the team at contact@kukrisports.com.
Coach Evaluator is the premier coach evaluation software for schools and athletic organizations and preferred coach evaluation solution of the NIAAA and the Positive Coaching Alliance. The system is completely customizable with an always growing evaluation template library for athletic directors to reference. There are not only evaluations for ADs to use, but also self-evaluations and parent-player evaluations of coaches. Learn more about digitizing and simplifying your coach evaluation process by visiting www.coachevaluator.com.
All right, now that we kicked out Matt, and I've asked you a bunch of questions, Dave, about your AD life, I'm kicking it over to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the guys listening to my podcast have no idea what AD means, so I'm going to, for those that aren't sure, it stands for Athletic Director, and Nick happens to be an Athletic Director at the American International School in Vienna, and I'm also an Athletic Director at the American International School in Salzburg. We're both Canadian baseball players who ended up in Austria via baseball, and then both ended up working at American international schools in Austria. So we have a very similar path. So this interview's about Nick. So Nick, can you start off with telling us a little bit about your baseball background, and then how that led to you in Austria playing baseball?
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks, Dave. Well, we're the same age, roughly. For anyone who doesn't know, we're in our 40s, you know. So I played minor ball in southern Ontario, just beside Niagara Falls. No travel team, or a travel team, but none of this big select travel all over the place system like they have now. So it was kind of harder to get seen, or, you know, to get noticed. Not everything's on the internet, stuff like that. And I played for the city and played well. But had a good teammate who was getting some attention, played for Team Ontario. And one game, a college scout came to watch him pitch. And I was a catcher that day. A couple hits, threw a couple people out. And after the game, the coach came up to me before he went to my friend. And basically said, "Hey, who are you? You need to come over to my school with your buddy." And then I went to Buffalo, played JUCO for 2 years. Had a great time. Erie community, I went to the Junior College World Series, and I was going to go to Niagara with the same friend, Jamie Robertson. He had a scholarship there, and I was going to follow him again for another 2 years. And then an old coach was just in Europe for the summer. He was traveling around with the Blue Jays. They did camps in 3 or 4 cities back then. And he said, "Hey, do you want to go to Vienna for a year to play ball?" And first, the question was, what? There's baseball in Europe? This is 1999, right? And
was it 99?
Yeah.
That's the same year I came.
Yeah.
I know I played you, but I thought you were already here when I got here.
No. So my first season was 2000, but when he was explaining it, right, was 99.
Yeah.
And totally blew my mind that was an option. And Western New York didn't seem so fun for 2 more years, thinking about maybe going to Europe. So I decided to come for one. I talked to the coach. He said he would have me at Niagara the year after if I came back and stayed in shape. And, but that 1 year turned into 2, and, I'm over 20 years now.
Yeah. I think there's a little more to that story, but that's how it happens.
Yeah.
To anyone that's listening to this, that's thinking of going overseas for the first time, keep an open mind, because things do happen. And so you came over. That was your first year in 2000. Then you went back to Canada, and then you returned for a second year. So how was the process, or how did it go down? And then how did you end up staying so long? Like, what's going on there?
Well, it was the first year was pretty hard. I was a player coach, 20 years old. Had guys on the team that were 40. And didn't know anybody in the country except for them. So you're trying to be a friend, but you're trying to be a coach, and you got younger guys and older guys. So I struggled. Also playing and coaching at the same time.
That's tough at 20. Wow.
Yeah.
20. That's a lot.
And I had to pitch, I had to catch. I was a catcher, but I had to do everything: pitch and play short. And so I saw some things, but I thought, I can do a better job. I want to see more things in Europe, and I want to, do a better job with this team. So I decided to come back for a second year. We just went home for the winter. And the second year was a lot better. I had my coaching, playing hats in check. I had the lay of the land, obviously knew more people. And we had a great year. We went to the finals. So on the field, off the field, everything was great. And I really decided, hey, I want to stay in Vienna. This is an amazing place. I want to try to make it work. I wasn't done university. Obviously, it just came over after 2 years of college. So I took 2002 and finished my university degree. Then 2003, I did my teacher's degree. Just came back for the summer in between the 2002 and the 2003 season. And then after that, I stayed. So I looked for a job, taught English 1 year as aside of coaching and playing. And then I hooked up with the school and did more and more with the school and less with baseball.
That's, it's funny. Like, we've had these conversations, but like, it's never like, I hear so many stories, and I'll be honest, my memory's not good. So I wasn't sure what order that came.
Right.
I know that the general everything. So that's very interesting. One of the questions that popped in my head while you're talking was, what sort of visa were you able to get in order to stay longer? Did it require you to get a job at where you are now, and then they sponsor you, or did you kind of first find a way to stay longer and then that came along?
Well, I was pretty lucky. The Wanderers, right from the start, I had a visa. I had health insurance and I had a visa, and I was officially registered. That was one thing that the club said from the start, and I didn't even know there was another option, until I came here and met other people that were just, kind of bumming it and getting paid in cash. So it was a red visa. Yeah. And I had a free. I could work anywhere as long as I had that job. I could get additional jobs as well. So then I started teaching English with the same visa. I started substitute teaching at school. And then it wasn't until I got married, which, was a few years later, that my visa status changed to a family visa.
Yeah. So you met your wife. Where did you meet your wife?
Well, through a friend of a friend, but the just being out with some and running into a friend of hers. But how I met the friend was quite funny. I was, at a bar downtown with Christian Tomzik, who a lot of people know, and we were talking at the bar in English about baseball. And then a girl came up and said, "Hey, you guys are talking about baseball. I play softball for Stockerau." And then we just started talking and ran into each other a few other times, and one time she had a friend with her, and that was it.
And okay. Very cool. Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. But, I was really set on staying here before I met Kati. I really wanted to stay here. I was here for a while already. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of just, icing on the cake, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Vienna, beautiful city. I mean, every year it's ranked 1 or 2 for best place to be in the world to live. So I can understand that. So, and there's a real community there too. Like there's a lot of baseball and softball. There's slow pitch. It's really hard to find that slow pitch beer league thing in Europe. And I think in Vienna you kind of have that, don't you? A little bit.
Well, that's honestly I was with the club for about 10 years, and I think I did a good job, building up a program and a community with the players and the teams, and we got really stable. Just having a foreigner there for so long, it helps. No matter if you're good or bad, I think it helps the club, right? But that was one of the things that I started softball here really, and for a couple of years, I was seeing our lower level teams play against these old guys in like the lower leagues. And I kept saying, this is brutal. I have these 14-year-olds, they're trying to get better, and we're playing against an out of shape 50-year-old. It's just not good for anybody. They should be playing softball. And then everyone would be like, well, what's softball? What's slow pitch? And I explained it, and they're like, no, everyone here wants to play baseball. We don't want to play that. And then one year, the Latin community started renting the field at the Spinato Visa, where I lived, and I could see them once a week out there playing slow pitch. And I started saying, hey, that's it. Like, look, you can be athletic and play slow pitch, and you can really get to know baseball. We can really spread the word about baseball through slow pitch. So I started a slow pitch league, and it just took off. I think from the first year we had 8 teams, and then we went into weekends and weekday leagues, and the league's still going strong.
That's cool. Like I mean, spoken like a true Canadian. Like, hey, we can play softball, and then maybe some baseball players will come out of it, and that's we love our softball in Canada. And I always visualize like when I retire from baseball, I'm going to play softball, and I just can't do that here because I would kill somebody. First of all, there is some softball, but that like they're still trying to figure out what hand to put the glove on. So, like they're people like someone's neighbor that never touched a baseball in their life or softball. So,
but that's a good thing about that's a good thing about it, though, right? When you're in a country that not everybody knows the game. It's a way to get brothers and uncles and whoever out there to give it a shot, and
it's a great way for them to learn the rules and actually just get familiar with the game without quitting, because when you try to jump into baseball, and as living in Austria, there's a lot of adults that try to play baseball for the first time as an adult, and it's better they just go and play softball, and if they have some sort of athleticism, they might transition into one of the lower men's teams or whatever. But so we ended up playing each other, which was cool. We had some good competitions, and then I was surprised, actually, because we didn't really get to know each other that well through the ball field. Back then, I was a little different. I was so competitive. I was more focused on killing the other team. And I didn't – now I'm a little more like I'm out there talking to everybody now. So as I've matured and aged, that's kind of the approach that I take now is I just try to enjoy every minute that I can actually be on the ball field.
Exactly.
But I remember back then I played with a lot of like I played hard, like it's how I played, right? Like, I think you being a hockey player, you understand the concept of like, taking up the catcher back when we were allowed to.
Right.
And that's kind of how we first really got familiar with each other.
Exactly.
Is that play at the plate, that famous play at the plate.
Absolutely. And as you said, you're used to getting hit, right? So, Dave, when you absolutely drilled me at the plate, I just got back up and went and looked for the ball, and didn't think
Yeah.
anything of it.
Right then, it was instant respect, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember back then if I knew you're Canadian. I think I knew you're Canadian,
Right.
but right then I was like, yeah, he took that hit like any Canadian hockey player would or whatever, right? Like same sort of mentality. You just went and got the ball. But I love that photo. I don't know who took the photo, but the photo is you kind of flying through the air, and your helmet's flying, your glove was flying, like everything was flying.
Everything was in the air, right? Even you. I was backwards. Everything. It was Joe Yoon.
Was it? Okay.
He took that, and it was great. It was on it was in all the Vienna papers. That picture, quite big. The week after, it was in a playoff game, right? And we had ended up beating you to go to the finals, I think. And there was an article, in all the papers with that picture really big. And great story is my parents came that week, or maybe they were there for that game, but they were there the week after when it was in the paper. And we went to Cafe Central. That wanted to take him down there, the big famous coffee house downtown. And we were sitting at the table and look over at the guy beside, and there's a guy in a suit. He's sitting there, and I get nudged by my parents. He's reading the article about baseball with the picture, and that's how I found out it was in the paper. Seeing
that's funny because I didn't even see that photo until years later. I think when you sent it, maybe. Yeah. Years later, and I just because of course I remember the hit, but I never remembered. I didn't know there was a photo of it, and then now I just learned for the first time that it was all over the newspapers. I didn't really know that either.
Well, we'll make sure we put it up whenever we put the podcast up. We'll make sure everyone sees it who's listening, so they know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, they've taken all the fun out of the game now, so now I don't even want to. Now I'd break a hip or something. So. Yeah. Well, no, it's good, and it was always nice. It was pleasant for me to. I can vaguely remember the first time I came to the American International School, Vienna, with one of my teams, and there you are. And I think I hadn't made the connection before or something, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And so then that was always one of the places I booked to go because you were always a great host, and it's nice to see a familiar face. And now I've kind of taken that out of the regular schedule because those Tuesday night travels to Vienna are
pretty far. It's funny how you connect with people, and all over, right? Obviously now you similar story for baseball, come to the same country, and then our work lives now are so similar as well. It's funny, but that's the best thing about coming overseas. You meet people all over, and you run in you'll see a player that played in one country last year, and now he's on another team in your league, and you get to know all these people. You never know who you're going to run into or where you're going to go next, right?
100%. You also obviously with my website, I know of a bunch of guys just like yourself who I've developed friendships with that are in the game that are now settled in Europe, around Europe, and you with your I'd say in your athletic director position, you're more traveled than I am, with all the different leagues being at a much bigger school. So I'm sure you've met just a ton of people in similar stories to ours. So it is pretty neat, and that is what happens. You came over with kind of through a fluke. Yeah. Through a fluke, you ended up in Austria, and next thing you know, this is where you are, right? So it's cool.
Funny. It's funny because you never, back then, not everything was online. Obviously with your website, and you connect people, and there's videos of not only the club of where a player is going to go, but also of the player. Where back then we had nothing. I didn't even see a picture of the people I was going to come and coach. Beforehand. And I remember coming, obviously a bit nervous, but the president of the club was, he's going to meet me at the airport. And, we had some nice emails and really excited. And I said, okay, well, how are we going to know each other? I've never flown internationally before. I don't know what it's going to be like. And he said, it's easy. It's small. Just come out. You'll see me. Baseball players will recognize each other. That's what he told me. So I thought, okay, sure. How I'm going to wear a baseball hat then, obviously, and he'll wear a baseball hat or what, and we're not going to wear a jersey, but sure, Sounds great.
Yeah.
So I came out and it was packed. It was just packed. And I brought a bike, and I could bring a bike for free with the airlines back then. So I had tons of luggage, trying to fight my way through. No, I waited in a corner. No one came up to me, kind of waving my ball hat. So I went over to the booth and showed the lady who barely spoke English a piece of paper of the name, right? And I said, hey, I'm waiting for this guy. Can you call him? So she says, sure. She calls. A minute later, comes over, and I thought immediately, what did I just get myself into? Where am I? And what have I just done? Because hey, he's a great guy. I love him still. But it was that first impression where I expected a ball player, really, didn't know his age. And being a Saturday Night Live fan, if anyone's seen the sketch Sprockets, of the German guys dancing in the club, all in black, all in tight black, that was what Christoph was wearing. And I thought, oh man, if that is a baseball player here, I am in trouble. But
that's a great story because I can relate a lot. Yeah, there's something level.
But no, we had a lot of good players, a lot of great players,
Oh
he was just the president at the time anyway. He wasn't on the first team anymore. So
yeah. So speaking of that, like there's two directions I can go with that right now because I don't know if they want to hear my silly story too, but it's very similar. Put it that way. I ended up in a club my first night.
Oh, thanks.
In a club, and we had a game the next day because they were in second division then.
Okay.
So they could care less about going out the night before. And they were all wearing tight pants and platform shoes. And I'm still jet lagged. I just want to go to sleep. And I was like, what? I had the same thought. What did I sign up for? But it ended up being pretty bush. But it in the long term.
Oh yeah, you're in a beautiful.
In the long term, that club, the club I'm with, has come a long ways, and now it's a whole different thing. But
sure.
I'd be curious to hear your opinion. I know we're past our 20 minutes here. I'd be curious to hear your opinion on the development of baseball, even just within your club, or you can speak to Austria or whatever, since 2000.
Yeah. Oh man, like night and day. Really, really improved in a lot of different areas. Obviously youth players. Like we have so many more youth leagues, like the lower levels now than we did back then. The amount of players playing the game. All the side things, I think, with technology, like obviously social media presence and signage at fields, that kind of goes without saying as technology got better. But the fields, back then, we were playing on soccer fields where if you hit it over right field fence, it was a double, because it was too short. And being a lefty, that wasn't really fun the first couple of years. But in every aspect and just the care, it's amazing the amount of great people there are, in each club that care so much about the club and give so much of their time.
Like maybe compare that to a men's league back in Canada, like how I'd just be curious to hear, your perspective being Canadian and growing up playing some club ball there and what, it's a whole different thing. Like club ball back home, sure, it's competitive and guys can get serious and everything, but at the end of the day, it's just a hobby, and but here it's a whole, like, it's really. I'll let you kind of. I'll hear. I want what you have to say.
No, I totally agree. It's you play and then you go to work at home. Up in the men's league, right? You still want to play at a good level, and then it's done. There's not, I would say tradition, at least not in Southern Ontario. Not too much tradition in those teams, and people move. They don't have, they don't stay as long, in my experience. But here. I get surprised. Like, there's guys on the Wanderers that have been playing since they were 16, and they're, 35 and, hardly miss a game for all that time. They're just so dedicated, and they don't want to go to the next level. They just want to play as best they can where they're at, There's not that, drive to get scholarships and go somewhere else, at least in Austria, obviously, because, there's lots of opportunity outside of sports here, right? So people don't really necessarily want to leave.
Yeah.
But I really tried to get a lot of players to go play college ball, especially when I first got here, when I still had lots of close ties. I really, a lot of players were trying, and no, we're going to go to university for free here. It's okay. We don't need to go and pay and do that.
Exactly. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. That's, we were just talking about that today. Just like, I don't mind paying whatever in tax I do, 38%, because I know my kids will go to college for free. And if they get sick, there's free healthcare. So, it's I understand why Austrians are very content. Just if they make the national team, that's kind of their goal. And also the camaraderie, like after the game, they don't, well, I don't know, I can't speak for the Wanderers there, but they'll stick around. Like they'll hang out. It's like a family atmosphere kind of thing. Like, so it's a whole different experience.
Right.
So it's very interesting, and it's pretty cool that, you and I have shared similar stories, or we have similar stories. And I know there's a ton of other guys out there that are,
right.
Maybe it was basketball or whatever that brought them over that are doing the same, living this kind of stories. So
that's the best thing. Like you mentioned at the beginning about, to anyone who wants to come over for maybe 1 year, you just never know, just keep everything open, and just experience. And, if you're not in the right fit, maybe that first year overseas, or you don't really like it, try another country, try another club, keep playing and keep your options open, and you never know where it's going to take you. Right?
Never do. Yeah. These are the best stories. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. And I know a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this. And it's definitely not the first time I've heard someone say, "Oh, I was just going for one season." That was the plan, one season. Yeah. It's amazing. So
great.
Thanks a lot. And hopefully I'll see you in the fall at our international school competitions.
Cool.
Perfect.
All right, Dave. Thanks
right
a
on,
lot.
buddy. Yep. We'll see you soon.
Until next week, this has been another episode of the Globetrottin ADs.